Hello, my name is Suzette Webley, and today I am going to talk about the colored bone skull features. And first, I am going to start off with the frontal bone. As you can see, the frontal bone is a single cranial bone that forms anterior part of the head of the skull, superior to the eyes in front of the region. All right here is the frontal bone, all right here. Now I am going to talk about the temporal bone. The temporal bone is a paired cranial bone forming lateral cranial bone forming from the cranial walls and articulating with the mandible of the temporal mandibular joint. So right here is the temporal bone, and it's a pair bone. Now we're going to talk about the parietal bone. The parietal bone is a paired cranial bone, that bone of the skull, articulating with the same bone as well with other skulls. As you can see right here, it's a parietal bone, and it's also a paired bone. Now you're going to talk about the ethno bone. The ethno bone, it is right here. It is a single midline bone, cranial of the skull that runs through the mid-sagittal plane. Right here. Right here is the ethmoid bone. And you know the mid-sagittal plane divides the body into left and right. Now we're going to talk about the nasal bone. The nasal bone is a paired facial bones forming bridge of the nose. So right here, this is the bridge of the nose right here, and this is the nasal bone. It forms the bridge of the nose, and it's actually a paired bone right here, and also you can see the nasal bone right here. Now you're going to talk about the sphenoid bone. The sphenoid bone is actually a single midline cranial bone that runs through the mid-sagittal plane. So right here is the sphenoid bone. Now we're talking about the zygomatic bone. The zygomatic bone is a paired facial bone forming the cheek bones. You can see right here, and right here is the zygomatic bone. Then we're talking about the occipital bone. The occipital bone is a single cranial bone that forms the posterior part of the skull and the base of the cranium. All right here is the occipital bone. Now we're going to talk about the maxillary bone. The maxillary bone surrounded by the facial structure of the alveolar, the frontal, the zygomatic, and the palatine. It articulates superiorly with all the frontal bone. So this is the maxillary bone all right here. Then we're going to talk about the mandibular bone. The mandibular bone is a single facial bone that forms the lower jaw, only freely movable bone of the skull. So the mandibular bone forms the lower jaw, and it's the only freely movable bone of the skull. Now we're going to talk about the sutures. First, we're going to talk about the coronal suture. The coronal suture extended across the skull between the frontal bone and each parietal bone, and also it referred to the soft spot in a newborn right here. Then we're going to talk about the lambodial suture. All right, here is the lambodial suture, and it's located between the occipital bone and each parietal bone, and it resembles the side down V-side shape in an anatomic position. Then lastly, we're going to talk about the squamous suture. The squamous suture is right here, and it's located between the temporal and the parietal bone. So right here is a squamous suture. Thank you.